Is it to be back here in Polk County with the I-Club?
Oh, it's incredible. We're just so appreciative of the support that this I-Club gives our Hawkeyes. And, we're making a concerted effort to be in your neck of the woods and to support them and be grateful for their efforts and be more present in Des Moines. So this is another opportunity for us to do that.
What kind of a bounce have you gotten since making the coaching change in the men's basketball program, bringing Ben in?
Well, the feedback we've gotten, I think there's a lot of early excitement, to be sure, and we've got a good handful of deposits on tickets. We haven't gone out on sale yet, but I think you can sort of tell just in the way that he's engaged himself quickly in the community, what the feedback is on terms of his reception, and we're just really thrilled about what I think he's going to build here and the way he's going to be able to lead our program.
How many of these events take place? I know it was Carol yesterday, right? I know Ben was there yesterday.
Yeah, we get to do a handful of these. So we've got about 3 we've got set up. We have one in Cedar Rapids coming up in a week or so here, and I know that pales in comparison to the old days when I think they had an opportunity really to stop in counties across the state. But I think it's incredibly important for us to be out and to be in everybody else's backyard. We ask people to come to Iowa City an awful lot, and we love having you there. But I think when you're building relationships and want to have meaningful space, you got to be where their home is, and this gives us a chance to do that.
Obviously, you've been preparing for one scenario with kind of the house situation, and then a little bit of a wrench thrown in that. Kind of how are you adjusting plans kind of amid the current fluidity there?
Well, I would say there's never been just one scenario, so I don't know if this is like, a scenario BB or CC, because we're down a long list. So, I think as we've all approached this, you sort of take the information you have and then try to create a framework that allows you to be as nimble as possible. So I don't think there's been many assumptions made along the way about how something might work. And so it's what do we know now? How do we create a plan for what that looks like with some contingencies, but be nimble enough to adjust based on what the judge says, based on whether there's approval or not approval, or if a component of that gets tweaked. And so, I'd be lying if I told you we weren't ready to at least have that component of it get settled. So we have at least a step forward, but I think this is just the first block that we're going to have to build on in the coming years. So, but it'll be a good first step if we can get to the finish line.
In terms of men's basketball NIL, I know that had been a concern previously. It seemed like Ben was really confident in what he has available to him. I guess, can you just describe the efforts from your end to put him in position financially to be able to be competitive?
Yeah, I think anytime you're looking to move forward and make sure you build a successful program, you got to know what it's going to take to do that. What that would have looked like 2 years ago is a lot different than it looks in this moment. And so you sort of went into that in a partnership of how do we make sure we identify what's going to be needed. And I think with Ben and with all of our sports that are really having to navigate that space, women's basketball and football, there's really just some open communication about how to build a roster, what the market looks like, what that's going to cost, and how we backfill that with a financial plan. And so he's been already an incredible partner in that space, and I think you're going to see he had the resources to put together a roster that he's excited about.
The revenue sharing, it'll be the schools paying the players directly. Will those payments be transparent? Will we know how much is this football player making? How much, if they are state employees, is that a thing that's on the horizon?
We don't really answer that question just yet. It's interesting. It'll probably be a little bit of state-by-state law. So is and how much of that might be protected by FERPA, like other student information. We do anticipate and hope that at least in aggregate, there's going to be some of that information that helps us understand what the market is. Because that's, I think part of the challenge right now is we're all negotiating against sort of a blind number there when you're talking to somebody else that's recruiting at different institutions. So we don't know exactly what that'll look like yet, but we do anticipate there'll at least be transparency that's maybe more in aggregate form, if not by individual student.
Along those lines, is there comparing of notes between ADs? We're thinking 70-something% for football. Oh, what are you thinking? Or is there any kind of...
Yeah, we can't collude. So we're careful about how we do that. And so I think there's maybe some generalities about how you want to approach things within your conference. But there's a lot of gamesmanship, right? And so we all have different strategies and approaches. And so there isn't, a sense like you might share, like, hey, how many scholarships you have, or, what are you spending on travel? I mean, it's not to that level of detail. I think everybody's probably trying to keep their cards as close to their chest as they can through this first iteration of this. But having some idea, generally, that I think most institutions are trying to follow some level of what revenue generation looks like on their campuses.
Along those lines, kind of what factors do you keep in mind when you're trying to figure out, you've got this limited pool of $20.5 million in terms of how you kind of split that up?
Yeah, I think I'd say the same thing I've said several times, which is, we certainly are taking a look at what's important to Iowa, and looking at what sports are generating revenue, and how we need to compete in the marketplace. And so we continue to do that, and do that, with a mindset too to continue to support our 22 sports across the board.
What are your plans for Sunday, Carver?
Well, I can tell you I'm as excited as everybody else to get to see Caitlin back on the court. It's going to look a little bit funny in that Fever uniform, but we're going to take her anytime we can, and wearing anything she wants in our building. But it's going to be a packed house. I think it's going to be a beautiful day. We've got some receptions planned outside, and those types of things. So it's going to be a lot of fun just to see her in that environment. And I think on top of that, they've got a little bit of a new roster, obviously a new coaching, new head coach, and it's going to be fun to get a preview for what that team's going to look like.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah, thank you.